Righto, Year 7, I'm going to go through adding fractions so that you can get on to questions from the capacity matrix that you have and need to finish. Now, I'm going to do questions 5, 6, and 7, and possibly 8. And I'm going to do the third column because on your capacity matrix, you're either got to do the first column, the second, or the fourth. So I've left these for me to do as an example. Now, the first thing to note when adding fractions is that you must, to add two fractions, you must have a common denominator. That means the bottom must be the same. Of both fractions. So, or indeed, if you have more than one fraction, for example in K, of all three fractions, because you can add more than two fractions. If the denominator is the same, then you just add the numerator, the top. So with 5c, it's pretty easy. We've got 1/5 plus 3/5. Don't touch the denominator. Leave it as a fifth. And just add the top. And 1 plus 3 is 4. That's pretty easy. Let's go to G. And I've got 3 on 15 plus 4 on 15. Leave the denominator alone and add the top, the numerator. 3 plus 4 is 7. So these are all pretty easy. Let's see what happens when we get to K. I've got 2 on 5 plus 3 on 5 plus 4 on 5. Well, 2 plus 3 is 5. Well, sorry, first up, leave the denominator alone. And secondly, 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 4 is 9. So I get 9 on 5. Now that answer is quite acceptable. 9 on 5 is a fraction. It's an improper fraction. But what we'd like to be able to do is write that as a mixed numeral. Now remember, the vinculum just means to divide. That's what it does. It is an operator which said, divide the top by the bottom, the numerator by the denominator. So this can be written as 9 divided by 5. So, how many times does 5 go into 9? Well, it goes in once, but there's 4 left over. Now, we don't write 4 remainder, we write 4 over 5. So as a mixed numeral, 9 on 5 becomes 1 and 4 on 5. 1 and 4/5. Okay, what happens? And let's look at question 6 now. So that's question 5. Let's look at question 6. What happens when I don't have two fractions or more that with the same denominator? A half plus a sixth. Well, I can't do that. I can't add them. So what do? Well, I have to get them to have the same denominator. And from our earlier work on fractions, we had to find the LCD, the lowest common denominator, which will happen to be the lowest common multiple. Now, what two numbers did these two numbers go into? Now, I can find it by going 2 times 6 and getting the lowest common multiple of 12. a multiple of 12. They both go into 12 because I've multiplied them together, so I know they both multiply into 12. But is it the lowest one? Well, if I'm looked, I would see that, well, the multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8. I'm going to stop there. And the multiples of 6 are 6. And I'm going to stop there because look, there's a multiple and there's a multiple. So the lowest common denominator, the lowest common multiple, will be 6. So how do I make them both have a 6? I don't have to do anything with the second fraction. It's already a 6, but the first fraction I have to change. Now, as long as I do the same to the top and the same to the bottom, the fraction won't change. I know that a half is the same as 50 over 100. If I get half the questions right in a test, that's like getting 50 out of 100 or 10 out of 20. So I can change this fraction by multiplying the top and the bottom by the same number. So I have to think, what do I have to multiply 2 to make it 6? And I go, oh, that's 3. So if I multiply the top and bottom by 3, I'll get the same denominator. So what does that do to that fraction? Just look at the first one. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. I haven't changed this fraction. And now they have a common denominator. And I can add them together. And that's 4 on 6. Now again, that answer is quite accurate. But I can simplify that. I can simplify that by finding something that goes into both of them. Now, there are two ways. You can divide or you can cancel. I would prefer you to learn the cancelling method. It'll come back later. So what number goes into both of those? And I've already got over here in my factors over this side. Look over here, my factors or multiples. So I know that 2 goes into 4 and that 2 will also go into 6. So how many times does 2 go into 4? Well, 2 goes into 4 2 times, and 2 goes into 6 3 times. That's called cancelling. It's finding the numbers that go into it. And I shouldn't have said over here the multiples. What I'm looking for are factors, common factors. And you'll remember from last unit, we used to call them, the thing we looked for was the HCF, the highest common factor. But you can do it in parts. You don't have to do it all in the one go. So my answer for that question should be 2 over 3. It's the simplest answer. Well, let's finish these ones off. What's the next one? 2 on 7 plus 1 on 3. 2 on 7 plus 1 on 3. 2 on 7, 1 on 3. And that was 6C. And this is 6G. Well, again, I've got to find the LCM, the lowest common multiple. I think I might go the quick way and just go, well, 7 times 3. That'll give me 21. I know that 7 goes 7, 14, and 21. So I know that 3 doesn't go into 7, 3 doesn't go into 14. So the lowest one must be 21. I don't need to list all the factors of 3. So I'm going to have to change both these fractions. So the first fraction, to make the bottom 21, I have to multiply by 3. So I do the same to the top. And that gives me 6 on 21. In the second fraction, we'll have to multiply that by 7 and 7. Please remember, we're not changing the fraction, and that'll give me 7 on 21. And if I add the top, I get 13. Don't change the denominator. And that one's as simplest as it can go. Well, let's do the last one in 6. 8 on 11 plus 2 on 3. 8 on 11 plus 2 on 3. So again, I need to find the lowest common denominator, or multiple. You can see up here, I use the word multiple. Denominator, they're the same thing. So again, I'm just going to jump in and go for 11 times 3. 33. Well, I know that 11, my 11 times table is 11, 22, 33. They're the three numbers, the first three numbers of the multiples of 11. I know that 3 doesn't go into 11. I know that 3 doesn't go into 22. So 33 is my lowest common denominator. So I've got 8 on 11. Now, how am I going to change that fraction to make it 33? I'm going to times by 3. I'm going to times by 3. And that'll give me 3 8s are 24 and 3 11s are 33. Let's have a look at the 2 on 3. Well, I'm going to have to multiply that by 11 and 11. And that'll give me 2 11s are 22 on 33. Well, 22 plus 24, well, that's 46 on 33. Now we have this division again. 46 divided by 33. Well, how many times does 33 go into 46? Well, it goes into it once. How much is left over? 13 on 33. And that's my answer. So let's recap. To add fractions, you must have a common denominator. When the denominator is the same, just add the numerators. Do not add the denominator. If you get an improper fraction, like we did here with 9 on 5, that's improper. And we want to make it into a mixed numeral. Just do the division, find out how many times the denominator goes into the numerator, the bottom goes into the top, put that out the front, and put the remainder over 5. If the denominators are not the same, you must make them the same. How do you make them the same? You look for the lowest common denominator, which is the lowest common multiple. You can find a common denominator just by multiplying both of the denominators together, but sometimes that won't be the lowest. Once you get a common denominator, add the numerators. Do not add the denominators. And if you need to, you can simplify by cancelling. All right, so good luck with those questions on your own.